The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah. The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah. The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah. The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, as-salatu was-salamu ala Sayyidil Anbiya wal Mursaleen, amma ba'd, fa'a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim. After praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most gracious, the most merciful, and imploring Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to shower His infinite blessings, peace, and salutations upon the best of the creation, the last of the prophets, the leader of the messengers, the most praised one, the most kind one, the most generous one, and undoubtedly the most beautiful one, none other than our beloved Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Also express my warm regards and salutations to every one of you as well, my honorable, respectable elders, dear brothers, sisters, lovable youngsters, students, professionals. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope and pray you all are doing good. May Allah bless you people with all goodness and bestow you all with a blissful life in this world and the hereafter as well. I warmly welcome you all to this series, The Prophetic Way, in the program Islam and Education. Well, before I begin with the essentials of the discussion, let us take a quick recap on what we discussed in our previous episode. Basically, we discussed about the significance of education in Islam, and also I quoted one narration in which our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Be one amongst the four." That is, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam has urged and encouraged every one of us to be a scholar of knowledge, or if you cannot be a scholar of knowledge, at least be a student of knowledge. If you cannot even be a student of knowledge, at least be a listener of these two. And in the worst circumstances, if you cannot even be a listener of these two, at least be a lover of these two. So after this narration, our scholars, our jurists, commenting upon this narration, they say that be one amongst the four, as mentioned by beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and do not be the fifth one, or else you may perish. And the fifth one is no one but an ignorant person. So we discussed this narration in our last episode, and also we discussed about how a knowledgeable people get superiority over ignorant person. Like I gave you an example that in Islam there is no concept of superiority. Like even if you are a rich person or beautiful person, Islam doesn't give any superiority based on race or based on any form of discrimination, but knowledgeable people are being given the privilege to hold the superiority over the ignorant people. So this is the rank and the status Islam gives for knowledgeable people. Today I'm going to tell you one narration, all right? And by this, you can just imagine that how knowledgeable people are not only respected and honored by us, but also by the beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll tell you one incident in which beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave importance to knowledgeable people compared to those who were engaged in voluntary worship. Once it happened that our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out of his chamber and entered Masjid Nabawi Sharif, Zadahallahu Sharafan wa Ta'zima. When he sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered the Masjid Nabawi Sharif, he saw there are two groups of people, perhaps sitting in a perpendicular position. First group of people were engaged in chanting litanies, reciting Quran, supplicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and doing voluntary worship. Whereas the second group of people were engaged in seeking knowledge, acquiring knowledge, learning about the divine commandments, prophetic narrations, and trying to question and answer each other with regards to Islamic affairs and religious affairs. When these two groups saw beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam coming inside, both of them were eager and curious to know where will our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam bless his presence. And when beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw these two groups, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, both of them are on the path of goodness. But the first group, he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that it is upon the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their supplication or withhold from them. So he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is upon the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that may he accept the supplication or withhold from them. And then he sallallahu alaihi wasallam took his blessed presence to those people who were seeking knowledge and said that I have been sent down as a teacher. And he preferred sitting with those people who were seeking knowledge. So this actually emphasized the importance, the significance of knowledge in Islam, that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam honored and revered those people who were seeking knowledge over those people who were engaged in voluntary worship. So this is how the rank and status is for knowledgeable people in Islam. And let me tell you, there's one misconception that is prevailing in our society today, and one of the biggest misconception I would say it as, that we believe that only reciting Quran, offering namaz, making dua, litanies, or chanting tasbih and all, only these are the forms of worship. We think that only these are the forms of worship in Islam. And if someone asks us that, can you tell me what are the forms of worship in Islam, what would we answer them? Namaz, roza, hajj, zakat, tasbih, zikr, dua, etc., etc. No doubt, these are the forms of worship. It's undeniable fact. And we are absolutely right that what we have said, that namaz, roza, hajj, zakat, tasbih and all these are forms of worship. But let me tell you the most superior and supreme form of worship. The most superior and supreme form of worship, it is being stated in the prophetic narration that our beloved Prophet ﷺ said, and it's being summarized in this way, that al-ilmu afzalul ibadah. Seeking knowledge is a superior form of worship. Seeking knowledge is a superior form of worship. But unfortunately, most of the people are just unaware of this. People think kitab padhna bhi koi ibadat hai, tafsir padhna bhi koi ibadat hai, Islamic books padhna bhi koi ibadat hai. People are with a mindset that only chanting litanies and reciting Quran is a form of worship. Undoubtedly, these are forms of worship, but seeking knowledge, acquiring knowledge is the superior form of worship in Islam. In fact, there are some narrations which say that just few minutes before you go to bed, just seek few rulings or learn some divine commandments before sleeping. It is better than spending the entire night in worship. And there's one narration which says that learning few rulings or laws of Islam is better than offering 1,000 cycles of supererogatory prayers, 1,000 funeral prayers. It is better than visiting 1,000 sick people. सिर्फ कुछ ही लम्हे इल्म दीन सीखना 1000 रकत नफिल नमाज से बेहतर है, 1000 नमाज जनाजा पढ़ने से बेहतर है, और 1000 लोगों की इयादत करने से बेहतर है. But most of the people, I don't know why do they think that only namaz, roza, hajj, zakat, chanting litany, supplications, reciting Quran, only these are forms of worship. Acquiring knowledge, reading books, learning about the divine commandments, learning about the prophetic narrations, and reading about Islamic affairs is the superior form of worship, because it actually saves you from evil activities, it saves you from satanic whisperings. In fact, Islam has encouraged us that even if you're in the last minute of your life, even if you're on your deathbed, even then, don't deprive yourself from seeking knowledge. I'll tell you one narration in which once our beloved Prophet ﷺ was engaged in a conversation with a companion. He ﷺ was conversing. And then at that point in time, one angel descended down and came to the court of our beloved Prophet ﷺ and informed that the companion who is just conversing with you, he's going to die very soon. He's going to pass away very soon in just few minutes. And narrators say that it was the time of Asr, and before Maghrib, that companion passed away. Now, beloved Prophet ﷺ informed this to that companion. Being a human tendency towards the feelings, he was very grieved after hearing that. But he was a very wise personality. He asked one of the wisest questions to our beloved Prophet ﷺ. That companion asked, Ya Rasulullah ﷺ, as you know that I'm just in the final hour of my life, I just have few minutes to go and I'm going to pass away very soon. Can you tell me one best deed or best form of action that I can engage myself in, that with which I can please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or I can have a good ending? So our beloved Prophet ﷺ recommended him. I'll tell you that what did he ﷺ recommended, but just want to ask you or me, myself, a question. If someone is dying in front of us, maybe a relative, friend, kin, or beloved, anyone, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant a long life to everyone. But if someone is dying in front of us and we know from an authentic source that that person just have 1 hour left in his life, and if he or she asks us, can you please recommend me one of the best action that I can engage myself in to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what would you or me answer them? Tell me with all honesty and sincerity. We would tell them offer namaz, we would tell them chant litanies, we would tell them repent on your sins, we would tell them recite Quran, and undoubtedly these are the forms of worship, and we are absolutely right on our opinion. But now let us see what our beloved Prophet ﷺ recommended. When he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam was being asked, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, can you tell me one of the best deed that I can engage myself in order to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you know that I'm just in the final hour of my life? He sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam said, start seeking knowledge. Start seeking knowledge. Just imagine that companion have just 1 hour left in his life. Even for the sake of consideration, even if that companion would have read some around 15-20 books, or if that companion would have memorized around 20-30 divine commandments or learned some prophetic narrations, how much time he has to practice upon it? How much time he has to practice upon it? Amal karne ke liye kitna time hai? Nothing. And in that narration, it has been mentioned that he passed away seeking knowledge. If that companion was being recommended to seek knowledge in the final hour of his life, just imagine if you or me have 10 years in our life, have 15 years in our life to live, 20 years, 30 years, how much knowledge, how much education do we require to live our life on the righteous path? Just imagine, just ponder upon this thing. Because knowledge is the only thing that can protect you from sins. Knowledge, education is the only thing that can safeguard you from evil activities. I'll give you one logical example. If you can understand this example, you have understood the crux of the discussion, all right? So listen to me very carefully. One logical example. Just imagine yourself that you are sitting in a dark room, all right? You are sitting in a room which is full of darkness. You cannot see anything. Neither you can see anything, neither you can smell anything, neither you can sense anything, nothing, all right? And there's a chair kept in front of you, you're sitting on a chair, and there's a table kept in front of you, and on that table there are 2 plates that are being kept, all right? In one plate there's biryani, it's mouth-watering, but just for the sake of consideration, there's a biryani, and the second plate, there is impurity, filth, najasat, all right? Now you are being commanded to take out your hand and start eating from either of the plate. You don't know that which plate has what. The room is full of darkness. And you cannot even smell, you cannot even sense. That high technology room is. So you are being commanded to put your hand in one of the plate and start eating. Now you start putting your hand based on guess. You don't know which plate has what. So you start putting your hand in the right plate, all right, without knowing that right plate has a biryani or impurity. Now you were just about to put your hand, suddenly what happens is that a light enters your room and it illuminates the entire room and blossoms the table as well. Now, by the help of that light, you see that the right plate in which you were just about to put your hand has impurity, najasat. Now tell me sincerely, what are you going to do? You are going to reverse your hand and put your hand in the left plate. But tell me, why did you do this? How did you come to know that you shouldn't put your hand in the right plate? Just because the light that entered the room. You know what that light is? That light is nothing but knowledge. If you don't have knowledge, you would have put your hand in the impurity. Knowledge, when it enters the room, it illuminates the room and gives you a guidance that do this, do not do this. In the same way, when knowledge enters a heart, it illuminates our soul and gives us a faculty of understanding. Do this, do not do this. Ye haram hai, ye halal hai. Ye jaiz hai, ye najaiz hai. This is permissible, this is impermissible. This is forbidden, this is allowed. This is permitted, this is prohibited. But unless you have no knowledge about religion, how are you going to safeguard yourself from evil activities? Agar hamare paas knowledge hi nahi hai, there might be a possibility that you might put your hand in ignorance in the filthy plate. I'll give you one example. There are thousands of examples that can be given, but one example just to make you people understand. Backbiting. Backbiting is haram in Islam. Ghibat karna haram hai. It's being proven in the Quran. Backbiting is haram in Islam. Now, I've seen so many people, they talk about the third person who is absent in that group. They talk about him saying that, अरे यार वो बहुत कंजूस इंसान है, वो बहुत बोलता है, बहुत बकबक करता है, इतना बातूनी इंसान है ना, बहुत पकाता है. Now I go to them and tell them, don't backbite, it's forbidden, it's haram in Islam. You know what is the answer that I get it from them? अरे सर, हम जो बोल रहे हैं वो सही बोल रहे हैं. वो वाकई बातूनी इंसान है, वो बहुत कंजूस है, सच बोल रहा हूँ मैं, जो बोल रहा हूँ सच बोल रहा हूँ, वो वाकई बहुत पकाता है, बहुत बातूनी है, बहुत कंजूस है. Whatever you are saying, if it is 100% true, if it is 100% authentic, if it is 100% genuine, and whatever you are claiming is found in that person, इसी को तो गीबत कहते हैं, यही तो हराम है. And whatever you are stating, whatever you are claiming is not found in him. If it is not found in him, then this is slandering, calumny, which is twice more severe than backbiting. But people are unaware of it. People are just ignorant of it. And unknowingly, even innocent people fall into the trap of evil activity. Innocent people, unknowingly. This is where Islamic education plays a very vital role. Today, people think that only wealth is the biggest blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let me tell you, no doubt that wealth is the biggest blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but more than that, knowledge is one of the prestigious blessing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Knowledge is one thing which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives only to those people who are the chosen ones. And Hazrat Ali makes a very amazing comparison between the wealth and knowledge. Hazrat Ali says that we are pleased by the decree and by the distribution of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with knowledge, whereas He has given our enemies wealth. Allah ta'ala की रिज़ा पे हम राज़ी है कि अल्लाह ताला ने हमें knowledge दिया और हमारे दुश्मनों को दौलत से नवाजा. And this is where Hazrat Ali thinks that knowledge is more superior than wealth. And he makes a comparison. He further says, wealth will perish and knowledge is eternal. Wealth has no significance when compared to knowledge. Wealth has to be safeguarded by a person. जिसके पास दौलत है, उसको खुद को उसकी दौलत की हिफाजत करनी है. You have to keep it in the safe, you have to keep it in the locker, you have to keep it in the cupboard. You have to safeguard your wealth. But knowledge safeguards you, your faith, your iman. तो हमारी दौलत की हिफाजत हमें खुद को करनी है, लेकिन हमारे पास एजुकेशन है, नॉलेज है, तो हमारी नॉलेज हमारी हिफाजत करेगा. This is the best comparison Hazrat Ali makes. So this is how important it is. Now, how much knowledge is required for a believer? How much knowledge is important for a believer to lead his life on the righteous path? Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal says, people need knowledge more than food and water. Listen to it very carefully. People need knowledge more than food and water, because a person requires food and water once or twice a day, whereas a person is in need of knowledge as much as number of breaths. Like, you need food and water just once or twice a day, but how much knowledge you need to protect yourself from evil activities or satanic whisperings or to go astray, as number of breaths you have. That much knowledge you require to lead your life on the righteous path. But it's really very sad and painful for me to say this, that many of the people in this modern era are really very, very far from acquiring knowledge and even learning about the basic fundamentals of Islam. Even the basic fundamentals of Islam. And this is the biggest tribulation of the time that we are living in today, that we have distanced ourselves so much from Islamic education that we are not even able to ascertain that are we really living our life in accordance to the Quran and Sunnah, or is it that we are just in the state of delusion that the way of life we are living are absolutely right. This is where Islamic education plays a very vital role. It enables a believer to find out, to ascertain that is he living his life on the righteous path, or is he just deluded by his ignorance. This is where Islamic education plays a role, that it helps you to identify yourself, it helps you to rectify yourself, and it helps you to know whether you are living a life on a righteous path or you are living in ignorance, following the evil path. Right? So these were two narrations that I want to tell you, and one logical example by which you got a very fair understanding how detrimental it is for a believer to be ignorant, and how an ignorant person can fall easily into the trap of satanic whisperings. So this was about the significance of education. Here we complete about the significance of education, the virtues and excellence of education. In our next episode, inshallah, we'll try to learn which knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim to acquire and how much of that. Because we heard the narration that seeking knowledge is compulsory. So there might be a question that which knowledge is compulsory and how much of that knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim. So in next episode, inshallah, we'll try to focus and highlight these synopses, as in which knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim to acquire and how much of that knowledge is compulsory upon every Muslim to acquire. So thank you very much for your patience and presence in watching this video. Take care of yourself and your family as well. Remember us in your prayers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to live our life in accordance to the Quran and Sunnah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enable us to protect ourselves from every evil activity and satanic whisperings. So keep tuned to watch the next episode, inshallah, to learn more about Islam and education. Till then, keep watching FGN channel and do not forget to subscribe as well.
The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah. The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah. The path of knowledge is the way to Jannah.